Hey everyone! Today we're diving into the story of an ancient empire called the Eastern Turkic Khaganate. This empire came about in the 7th century after the bigger First Turkic Khaganate split into two parts, one in the east and the other in the west. Our focus today is on the eastern part. The Eastern Turkic Khaganate had its highs and lows before it was defeated by the Tang Dynasty. After that, its lands were taken over by another group called the Sui and Tang. Let's start from the beginning. Back in the 6th century, a group called the Uyghur Turks rose to power, taking over from the Uyghur Khaganate as the top rulers of the Mongolian plateau. They didn't stop there, they quickly spread their control all the way to the Caspian Sea. But as time went on, cracks started to show. By the end of the 6th century, the Uyghur Turk Empire had split into two, the Western Turkic Khaganate in Central Asia, and the Eastern Turkic Khaganate in the Mongolian plateau. At first, the Eastern Turks were so powerful that rulers in nearby areas paid them tribute. But everything changed in 630 when the Tang Dynasty overthrew them and took control. To really understand who the Turks were, let's talk about their name. The word Turk comes from an old Turkic word that means created, born, or strong. Some even think it referred to being in the prime of life. There's also a story in Chinese records that says the name came from the shape of a mountain in the Altai region that looked like a helmet. Whether or not that's true, it's a cool story that shows how rich and interesting Turkic history is. The Eastern Turks trace their roots to a family called the Ashina clan. Back in the 5th century, this clan led 500 families west from a place called Gansu. By 460, they settled in the Altai Mountains, which was a big center for metalworking and trade at the time. The first mention of the Turks in Chinese records came in 542, when they started raiding across the Yellow River during winter. A few years later, in 545, a leader named Buman Qaghan started making deals directly with the Western Wei dynasty, ignoring their old overlords, the Rouran. After a series of clever moves and military wins, Buman declared himself Qaghan, and the First Turkic Khaganate was born. Buman and the leaders who came after him expanded the empire fast. The eastern part of the empire was sometimes called the Blue Turks, or Heavenly Turks, because they were associated with the East and the color blue. They had a huge impact on Central Asia's history. Even though their power eventually faded, they were able to take a lot of wealth from nearby Chinese dynasties. At one point, they received a yearly tribute of 100,000 rolls of silk, which they used to build their economy and trade. And the Turkic Empire was already facing internal struggles and external pressures. In 581, China saw the rise of the Sui dynasty, which aimed to bring the region under control. The Sui started interfering with the Turkic Khaganate by supporting or bribing rival leaders. That same year, Taspar Qaghan, a key ruler of the Turks, passed away. His death sparked a fierce rivalry among three claimants: his son Anlo, Mukan's son Appa Qaghan, and Ishbara Qaghan, the son of Isik. Although Taspar had named Appa as his successor, the tribal elders didn't agree and initially backed Anlo. But Anlo quickly lost influence, leaving Appa and Ishbara to battle for power. In 584, Ishbara attacked Appa, forcing him to flee westward to the lands of Tardush, Buman's brother, who was leading what would become the Western Khaganate. Together, Appa and Tardush retaliated and drove Ishbara back east. Ishbara then turned to the Sui dynasty for help. With their support, he managed to push Appa further west. However, by 587, both Appa and Ishbara had died, leaving the Eastern Khaganate in the hands of Ishbara's brother, Baga Qaghan, and later Ishbara's son, Tulan Qaghan. Tulan's reign was full of challenges. In 587, he stopped paying tribute to the Sui dynasty, and just 2 years later, he was assassinated. Tardush seized the moment and temporarily reunited the Turkic Empire. But his power didn't last long, as the Sui supported his enemies, and poisoned wells forced him to retreat. By 603, the split between the Eastern and Western Khaganates was permanent. Yami Qaghan took control of the Eastern faction and became somewhat of a vassal to the Sui dynasty. He admired Chinese culture and even had a Chinese-style home built in the Ordos region. As the Sui dynasty weakened, the Eastern Turks tried to assert their independence. Shibi Qaghan, a leader of the Eastern Turks, stopped paying tribute to the Sui and even besieged Emperor Yang in 615. However, the Sui struck back by killing Shibi's trusted Sogdian advisor in a trap. Despite this, Shibi remained a thorn in the Sui's side. In 617, a massive Turkic force marched toward the city of Taiyuan, only to find the gates mysteriously open. Suspecting an ambush, they retreated. This gave Li Yuan, a general defending the Sui, a chance to regroup and later overthrow the dynasty, founding the Tang dynasty. Shibi was succeeded by his younger brothers, Chuluo and Illig Qaghan, but their leadership didn't last long. Illig Qaghan, the last independent ruler of the Eastern Turks, led annual raids against the Tang dynasty. In 626, he even reached the gates of Shangan, the Tang capital. Emperor Taizong, who had just overthrown his father, chose to pay a massive ransom to avoid further conflict. But Taizong didn't let his guard down. He used this time to build a stronger cavalry and prepare for war. By 627, a brutal winter caused widespread famine among the Turkic tribes, with many livestock dying. Illig's response was to raise taxes, which only made things worse. This led to widespread rebellions by tribes like the Soyantuo, Uyghurs, and Begu, as well as some of Illig's own people. In 629, the Tang dynasty, alongside these rebel groups, launched a massive attack. 6 armies coordinated their efforts across a vast 1,200-kilometer front, ultimately capturing Illig and ending the Eastern Turkic Khaganate. After the fall of the Khaganate, power in the region shifted. Senzu Khan of the Soyantuo became a dominant leader in the north. Emperor Taizong of Tang relocated the Ashina clan, the former rulers of the Khaganate, to the Ordos region. But tensions remained. In 639, after an Ashina assassination attempt on Taizong, he moved them to a buffer zone between the Yellow River and the Gobi Desert. By 642, the Soyantuo pushed the Ashina even further south. Attempts to revive Turkic power, such as rebellions by Ashina Chebi Khan, Ashina Nishufu, and Ashina Funian, all failed. However, the Turks would eventually regain influence with the rise of the Second Turkic Khaganate, and later the Uyghur Khaganate, starting a new chapter in their history.